It's the Canon Event Podcast, episode number 2, recapping the, let's say, drab 1-1 game against Manchester United. And I'm one of your co-hosts, Sim, and with me today, as always, is my cousin Aaron. And we're going to walk through, exactly what's happened in the game. Ultimately, our thoughts and feelings. We want to break down a little bit the start, how we felt we're missing some of the that cutting edge. Were there any tactical adjustments that we think Arteta did well? We'll go into a bit of that. And then I think the midfield question comes back into play. Declan Rice, dominant as always. Martin Ødegaard, struggling to influence the game in the way in which we want. And then, there's lots more to break down after that. And then we'll have a look into the PSV game coming up, and perhaps some of the fact that the tickets are still available for it, and then also a bit of a preview and a look ahead to maybe Chelsea as well and how pivotal that game will be to our season. So Aaron, how is it? How are you feeling? I know our text messages were blowing up yesterday. Maybe we weren't feeling. Maybe we've calmed down a little bit since then. But it'll be good to get your over 24 hours thoughts and feelings since the game.
I think that's a good way to put it, actually. I think the nice thing about recording kind of 24 hours post-game, or just under 24 hours post-game, is you have a bit of time to calm down, I think, and just get a bit more reasonable with your analysis. I think everyone during and kind of after the game yesterday were in a bit more of an emotional state. We weren't very happy naturally about the performance. I think it's quite fair to say that most people were quite upset and continue to be quite upset. I think the mood at the moment is just a bit disappointing, really. And I don't think it's been very good, really, a PSV game aside, for quite a few weeks now. Because that's our third game in a row that we've dropped points in the Premier League. Obviously, we could talk more about the implications that has on I would say title race, not really a race, to be honest. It's not been a race for a while. I think it has been more of kind of like a hope more than anything. Not in the best kind of spirits, kind of following that. And it wasn't the best game in the world. But I'm sure we'll discuss as to why that was more specifically as we go on.
And I can only echo that sentiment, to be honest. I suppose the feeling going into yesterday was one of a high. Maybe we found a little bit of our attacking rhythm and flow, and we can play with a bit more freedom again. And you would expect against a side as poor as Man United, and this is the poorest United team I've seen. We even spoke about that in the last pod. That you would expect a team even lacking a striker such as ours to go away at Old Trafford and be able to do a bit better than what they did. And just as it has been on multiple occasions this season, we've been quite disappointed by a very lackluster performance. So how do you rate the tactics that were deployed? Maybe thinking a little bit about the team selection to begin with, and then breaking it down in terms of how we tried to manage ourselves through the game, and then where certain things got away from us, and if there was anything we did particularly well, what was that?
I think probably team selection wise, I don't think he has much scope to change things at the moment, naturally, just because I think we're quite limited with our squad numbers, as we know. It was nice to see that Martinelli was back in the squad. I think most people would understand why he's not starting when you're coming back off a hamstring injury like that. You're not going to be starting a game because they're worried about re-injury, and you obviously have to manage your minutes in that scenario. I think we saw one change, didn't we, from midweek, which is Calafiori came in at left back for Miles, which again I think most people would have been fine with, really. I have a little bit of maybe an issue with that, possibly, but I do understand why, probably, because I think he feels like Calafiori does give us a little bit more going forward. And then obviously we're persisting with Marino at 9. So as much as, I do have an issue with the starting 11, it's not because I think Arteta could change it much. I just think that at the moment we're kind of dealing with what we have, which is not a lot. I felt like we started quite well, but we'll talk about that in a second. What were your thoughts about the starting 11? Would you have changed anything? Would you have started any more different?
I think, to be honest, not that I was overly enamored with Calafiori's performance in hindsight. I felt there was certainly defensively he felt a bit erratic. I think, okay, yes, going forward he can offer a little bit that chaos factor. And he can, score a goal out of nowhere. But needless to say, on the opportunities that United got down the right-hand side, Garnacho coming at him, he never really felt comfortable. Whereas I think even when Lewis Skelly coming on, there was... He is able to bring a little bit more control in midfield, which I think maybe Calafiori doesn't quite do in the same way. And even the fact that he was able to get himself into a good position where he won the foul for that free kick that ultimately wasn't 11.2 yards back, and like the Arsenal one, that wall. That I think Sky Sports have been trying to turn into a bigger issue than it actually was, and I'm glad that Arteta didn't rise to the bait there. But yeah, needless to say, I think there's not much you can do. I think there's, again, hindsight's 2020. You could still look back at our decisions in January to not try and go after another body, although at the time the rationale was we don't want to get anybody for the sake of getting anyone. But now if you look at it, maybe it still might have helped, even if it was a free transfer or something, just to give us something a bit different. But
I want to quickly ask you a question, actually, just come back on that. Obviously you mentioned Calafiori and you mentioned the fact that he's probably not the most stable defensively. So I want to ask, do you feel like this is an issue now? Because I think we saw, we've seen it in maybe earlier this season, but I think more pointedly, I think we saw it against Wan-Bissaka against West Ham. He's gone, he's beat him on the outside. He's put a ball in the box. We saw Garnacho basically beat him on the outside quite a few times yesterday and put decent crosses into the box or causing problems. Is there an issue here with his defensive ability to kind of stop players beating him on that side? Because I feel like as soon as Miles came on, again, Garnacho had basically no joy going down the outside, and he didn't even want to take him on the outside because he couldn't. Whereas Calafiori seems to get beaten quite easily on the outside. And I think, do you think, and we're going back kind of a bit further back now, do you think he is still scarred from, and I can't remember what game it was, right? But he was beaten on the inside one game. Do you remember? And Gabriel couldn't get across, and it might have been Leicester at home. I don't even remember.
I feel like it might be. He got cooked.
And do you feel like, or it was no, sorry. You know what it may have been? I think it may have been no. You know what? I don't remember what the game was, but I remember basically there being an issue with Calafiori got beaten on the inside a bit too easily. Oh, Brentford. It was Brentford. Yeah,
and Brentford took him to the cleaners, basically. Yes,
and I'm not sure. Did they score in that game? I can't remember. I think they scored, didn't they? Straight away. They scored very early. Yeah,
very early.
And he just come inside. So, do you think he's a bit scarred from that? And from that reason, he just felt like he really can't get beat on the inside now. So he overcompensates, and then he makes it easier for him to get beat on the outside. We can come back to it in what I think. But
no, it's a good point, and I think a lot of. Even if we want to stat pad this a little bit, United's XG in the end, okay, it's marginal, but theirs was 1.65 to our 1.61. Yet we had 68% of the ball. So even though they're a god awful garbage side, they were getting, in theory, more quality chances because there is something in the way in which we set up defensively, or at least the quality of chances that come against us, and an element of panic that comes in. And I don't believe that really necessarily comes from Gabriel or Saliba, for sure not. And then, Timber is very, very solid. So then, you could only really look at Calafiori. You could be right. I think I think you're onto something. It's also his body shape, like the way he positions himself. I find that, it's like his weight distribution seems a bit off when he's trying to show someone on the outside, and it might be because he's trying to overcompensate and not let them cut in. But considering that's your stronger foot, you should feel so much more comfortable defending the outside than and especially against someone. Okay, yes, Garnacho's strongest foot is his right foot, so
right foot, yeah.
But needless to say, your left versus his right, you should be strong enough to be able to support it. So I think there is something quite interesting in that. I also think that
let's come back to that.
Yeah, just one thing I would say is that obviously he's given license to bomb forward, and primarily when he was doing that for Bologna, he was doing it in either a back three or was actually playing as the centre half. And I think it's a very different thing when you're coming up against, a striker who's coming at you, for instance, versus a tricky winger. So maybe a bit of adaptation. You can't expect them to hit the ground running straight away.
I want to come back on that, because I think it's a good topic, because I think I've been having a debate with a few people online about where I think his best position is. I think he's a centre back, and I can see why he's a centre back. So let's kind of put that to the side, and let's come back to that. So that's a really good discussion to have, because I do think he's an exceptional player. But yeah, let's come back to that. Let's talk more about the games. I'm sure we could do a whole hour on tactical positioning and
weight distribution on which foot.
Weight distribution, weight foot, exactly.
So then, did you feel like fundamentally, what was this game? We lacked the cutting edge, right?
Yeah.
We just didn't have the incision necessary to get in that final third and do something meaningful with the ball. That horrible horseshoe type of passing from one bit to the other, trying to almost like a boxer, you're jabbing, and you're looking for one little chink in the armor to get through. But yeah, talk to me a little bit about what you thought of like our forward players' movement, the likes of also, we can get into Ødegaard a little bit after as well, in terms of the way in which he was distributing and handling the ball. What was your overall sentiment?
So I mean, I think it's good that you use term movement. I would say kind of lack thereof of movement, and I think that's my biggest problem with our team kind of currently and going forward. My issue is that I think that when we have the ball, we have a lot of ball watchers. So if whoever's got the ball, either it be Declan Rice or Thomas Partey or Ødegaard in that central space, everyone ahead of them tends to kind of sit and just hide behind players and just kind of wait for things to come in and kind of slowly mosey on into the box. So I feel like, as we probably saw, we had a lot of possession in the first, I'd say, probably first 40 minutes, right? A pretty first half, a lot of possession. United really didn't really want to engage us at all until we got to about, maybe 10, 15 yards inside their half. Xerxes was just letting Rice kind of just walk past him. He didn't really care. Garnacho wasn't really tracking and doubling up on anyone. They were quite happy to kind of just have their back five, their midfield block of Casemiro, Eriksen, and then, then having their forwards kind of maybe just double up on the wingers. What I noticed quite early on is that they pretty much very quickly identified as Ethan Nwaneri as our biggest threat. They double and even triple teamed him at times. So Dallo was there over on him. Yoro would come over. Bruno Fernandes would come over and just stop him even having any joy. And I think it affected him. I think it affected him quite a lot. He lost the ball a few times centrally, which led to us being kind of counter-attacked a couple of times. I think he then lost confidence from that. He didn't then want to take the ball on and try and beat his man. I thought they handled him quite well. Credit to them. I think Dallo did quite a good job, 1v1 versus him. But even then, what I noticed very early on is that when we pressed them quite high and we forced them to play, we were winning the ball. There was a couple of times where we very much could have scored very early on. Quite similar to, you might have seen the Bournemouth Tottenham game a few hours earlier, where Tottenham just kind of were giving goals. Well, they wanted to give goals away, basically. It was a very similar thing where when we pressed them high and we had a bit of energy, I think we did quite well. So basically, when we allowed them to make their own mistakes, when we let them set up and we tried to pick the lock and get in behind them, I feel like we just didn't cause any many issues at all. I think we were quite stagnant. I think you mentioned the horseshoe shape that we have. It was quite obvious that they were happy to do that. And it likens back to a game that we played against Chelsea last year, I think, last season, where we drew 2-2, where really they were there and they were happy to lose the game themselves if you let them, So my issue is that we didn't identify very early that if we just play in areas that they don't want, if we put the ball in areas they don't want, they're going to give you goals. But if you keep having the ball outside of their block and you keep letting them set up, you're asking for problems, because when you lose it, you're then running backwards, So that was probably my biggest takeaway from the first kind of 40 minutes, which I'm sure we'll talk about kind of a bit more in a second about what then happened around that time. and with the whole free kick nonsense and all that stuff, which again, I have a few opinions on that. But yeah, my opinion was a lot of stagnant possession. We seemed to start the way we should have, which was we identified them being quite nervous on the ball. But then for some reason, we just decided, actually, you know what? Even though we're literally about to score here, let's just stop doing that. Let's stop doing that. And I didn't understand why we did that. But yeah, what were your thoughts about what we did?
Yeah, I think the good things that you saw against PSV, for some reason, we didn't seem to be able to translate that back into this game. I think the thing that we really highlighted that we liked about the PSV game in particular was our fullbacks really getting in high into those channels and forcing those turnovers as well. So even when Onana was looking to kick it long, trying to hit some of the corners or even looking for Xerxes, we were winning it. Of course, there was even some points that the Arsenal fans were celebrating every single time he tried to kick it out of his box. But you didn't feel like your fullbacks were getting into those sort of positions that were pinning United when we had the opportunity. So I think you highlighted it really well there. Were we setting traps as well as we were doing against PSV? No, we weren't. Now, what was the reason for that? I always wonder, like, why is there such a stark difference between one game to the next? And I don't think, there's a massive gulf in quality between PSV and Man United at the moment either necessarily, and not considering where their confidence is either. So you would hope that there would be a bit more energy behind us trying to get them stuck in certain positions. The other bit, the lack of willing runners from midfield. I think Declan Rice tried to it in a couple of instances. He got into that sort of like half space between Merino and Trossard and tried to make something happen, but they were of course set so deep that it started feeling quite congested. And yeah, in that respect, we missed sort of more creative movement. People then saying, you know what, let's switch position. Let's go out and let's try something different, and let's give the Euro and De Ligt something else to think about, for instance. So we make Merino play further a little bit wide, try and ping some balls to him in the corner, for instance. And that, for me, generally is sometimes where I get a bit frustrated with, Arteta's sometimes very rigid tactical structure. Although he wants them to play more fluid, it never seems to pan out that way. So yeah, that's kind of my sentiment and my feeling. And then I guess we start getting into the territory of when we concede that free kick and ultimately they get the first goal. So yeah, what do you think caused it, and what could we have done differently in order to prohibit it? And yeah, how does that change the game?
Yeah, I think the thing that's the most frustrating is that it's pretty much a carbon copy of what happened in the game in the FA Cup, right? Like we were dominating them, they're not doing anything, they're there for the taking. All you have to do is just score first, and then the game's yours really to just kind of control and then play the way you're playing at the moment. And then we concede a pretty silly free kick in my opinion. The ball goes up to Calafiori. I think he had a bit of an issue with Mazarari on that side. They were switching it over to that side quite a lot. They were looking for him. He loses the header, which is fine. You can lose the header. No problem with that. But the problem is then, Trossard is and I've been having quite a big issue in my opinion with Trossard recently, is that he's not focused. He's not alert. He's late to the ball, and then
it's part of the reason why we conceded the way we did it, like the situation that we found ourselves away at Bournemouth, right? Which, if you think about it from a momentum perspective, that was such a pivotal game. And yet, the way he kind of lazily kicks the ball and doesn't really get any conviction behind it, then causes a massive issue for Saliba, and he's forced to make a decision that, he ultimately costs us the game. And he's pretty much done it again. And I was going mad at the TV screen being like, dude, just stick your foot through it. Or if you're not going to do that, take the man out then at least, but not that close to your goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, early, right?
Early.
Do it early. Do it early or don't do it. Like, do it early, or then let your centre backs, whose job it is to just eat him up in that scenario where Garnacho really thinks he's going to drive into that area with Gabriel Saliba. You're not, mate. You're going to get absolutely eaten up, right? And he was begging for it. He basically like Miles, right? When he went down for that challenge. they don't want to go any further. They want you to chop them down. Yeah, they want you to chop them down. They want you to be naive, and they want you to be frustrated that you lost out on that challenge, and they want you to, and they're banking on you being stupid. And what you did was be exactly that. You're just stupid. You just gave away a dumb free kick to arguably, probably, maybe other than James Ward-Prowse, probably the most deadly person from set pieces in that area in the league, Bruno Fernandes. And I'm pretty sure if you took a poll of every single Arsenal fan who was watching the game at that point when they set up for that free kick, regardless of the wall, by the way, right? We'll talk about the wall in a second. Regardless of where the wall was, every single Arsenal fan was sitting there like, yeah, this is goal. Like, it's just goal. Like, it's obviously going to be a goal here because they've had nothing all game, and you're giving him the opportunity. And he's the key guy at doing that. He's the key guy of, you've given me nothing all game, watch this. And, you know,
we've seen it a million times, right? And I think even if the wall, right, was 5 yards in front, I bet you he still scores because that's just how it goes. So yeah,
he's still scoring.
Of course,
he's still scoring because it's going in.
Yeah, because they've had nothing. We've given them nothing really. We should have scored with all the dominance that we've had, and lo and behold, we've allowed it to get to 40 minutes, 44, whatever it was.
Like 44 minutes,
exactly, yeah. And you could. I've seen the story a million times.
A million times. Yeah. So what were your so now just let's go to kind of more kooky kind of tinfoil hat part of the podcast just for this part, because I know you're going to say the same thing as me. What were your thoughts about the wall? I didn't notice it at the time. I didn't notice it at the time. I was more concerned with actually why is Raya so far over to one side. But what were your thoughts on the whole kind of Anthony Taylor 11.2 yards, etc. nonsense?
I think Arteta fundamentally commented on the right way, which is you've allowed yourself to get into that situation. A yard here, a yard there. I think you could measure probably 100 walls over the course of the season, and how many of them are exactly 10 yards?
That's exactly what I said.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly what I said.
I don't know,
exactly
man.
What I said.
It's just, again,
I don't care that much.
It's Sky Sports trying to make some ridiculous narrative so that a bunch of Arsenal fans on Twitter will get clickbaited into some unnecessary dialogue, and that creates views, shares, likes, tweets, and it creates a story out of nothing, really.
This is it. I think for an institution which seems to get so upset every time referees get even a little bit of criticism, creating a weird narrative about the referee, it was just ridiculous. Like, okay, the guy stepped maybe an extra step more than he should have. Okay, maybe the players at the time thought it was a bit far, but okay, like you said, let's measure 100 walls like that have been done there. I'm pretty sure if you averaged it out, most would be ranging between the 9 to kind of 11 yard range anyway. And even in that sense, on top of that, how many walls creep forward? So let's say if it's 10 yards, how many walls end up being 8 yards because players creep forward? The one thing I'll say is our players, for some reason, want to just follow the law of the game so much. Why are you not creeping forward? But what I will say is it's an absolutely fantastic free kick. He's got it up and over the wall. My bigger concern is with the speed at which Raya moves his feet once he's over. So I feel like he takes a step. So obviously you leave that side more open because the wall's there. That's what the wall's for. He takes a step over to one side, and he does the right thing in my opinion because he's getting ready for it. Then he stops and pauses, and that pause basically means that by the time the ball goes to that side, he's stuck in the mud. And this is my biggest issue with Raya actually, because I love him. I think he's amazing, great keeper, probably arguably the second best keeper in the league in my opinion. You know, obviously Alisson is number one by far, but I think Raya's probably second, or up there somewhere. My issue is his stuck in the mud saving style. I feel like he dives too early sometimes. So my issue is he feels like he needs to dive at that moment. It's like, no, actually, my friend, you can move your feet a bit more before you have to dive. And if you do that, you probably get down a bit later, but you probably save the shot. And that was my issue with him. But how did you feel about the free kick?
I completely agree. I think the way he's been saving or attempting to save penalties recently gives me a similar feeling. It never, you know, where you see goalkeepers really making the most out of their line, and using, like, okay, one thing for sure, he's still probably on the smaller side of what you would want a goalkeeper to be. I mean, even if he was a 1 inch, 2 inches bigger, he probably would actually get a hand to that, you know. But needless to say, then you have to use your feet more because you have to compensate for the lack of height and reach. And yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame, really, because I think he does so many other things really, really well. But on, in certain games in the Champions League, for example, he gets caught out because, again, he's anticipating a shot or something and he's a bit too slow to it, or when he's got lobbed or things like this and stuff. And so I think it's quite emblematic of, let's say, if there are any shortcomings to his game, it is probably the way he gets moving himself off the line. Although the only thing that you can credit is just that he particularly did keep us in the game as well.
Fantastic performance.
Support United finishing. Let's also be fair to that. But he, without
the
him,
Xerxes one wasn't good.
Yeah, no.
The Xerxes one isn't good. But the Mazraoui one is a fantastic save. I mean, that is a just exceptional save, isn't it? Like he's, that's game over, really, isn't it? Like if they score that, and he's kept us in it. So I think he more than redeemed himself for that. Even though I don't even think, I'm not blaming him for the free kick. I don't want to blame him. I'm just saying that, maybe
could he have done better? Yeah.
I mean, I think they mentioned it quite well on Sky Sports, didn't they? I think Jay Redknapp was saying it, or Paul Merson was saying it, someone was saying it. They were saying if it's that far inside the post, and it's also that low down in the goal, you should be getting a hand to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Saving it is one thing. Like, if he's put top spin on it and he smacked it and it's gone, it hits your hand and it goes in, fine. But you haven't even got a hand to it, and it's like you're not even near it, really.
No, the ball's already gone past him when he's even by the time he even gets near it. So I think it's
I think he'll feel like he should have done better. I think he'll feel like he should have done better.
100%.
Yeah.
So then we go into half time.
We can draw a line under that,
right? That's it.
Yeah.
So we have 4 minutes of extra time. Don't make much of it, and then what do you think? How does Arsenal respond after Arteta's halftime team talk? Really?
I mean, I wonder. I mean, I'm trying to figure out maybe what he says in that team talk. I mean, what I would say is that something that he said in his post-match interview is quite key. That he was really, really happy with the first half performance. Like, or from what I could take from that, he was like, you do all these really good things. You press them and you get the ball, you win the ball, and you create opportunities, you create overloads, and you keep them basically to nothing. And you get hit like that. So, from my opinion, I don't know if he really wanted anything different, really. I think he probably just thought, you know what, you're doing the right things, you're getting in the right areas, you just need to kind of have that cutting edge. And I think what we kind of discuss now would be, how did you feel, even the first half, and then going forward from that in the second half, how did you feel that the leaders in the team did at that moment? So, for example, how do you feel someone like Ødegaard at that time, who probably felt like the burden was more on him to kind of break something open and create something? How did you feel like he responded to that task?
Overcompensated, really. Although on the text with you, I think I was trying to defend him a little bit by saying that everybody else was having a garbage game, but there was one moment at 1-1 where we eventually scored, but it was pretty damning, let's say, of his performance, where I think we had about 7 players ahead of him, more or less, all on the 18-yard line trying to make a run in, and he decides to run in a circle and then run all the way back towards goal, and you've taken completely any momentum that we might have had in that situation away. And it is so obvious. We've seen it in many players, even me and you, when we played, when our confidence is a bit down, you either do one or two things: you go hiding and you don't want the ball, or you do the opposite. You overcompensate. You take too many touches.
Yeah, he's not a hider.
No, he's not hiding. But I think you have to find a balance, really, between then fundamentally just taking one too many touches, stodging up, let's say, the play from an attacking sense. And you're not really... I think in the first half he was better. One thing I would say, I felt like he was trying to look for balls, like he was trying to look for... And again, ultimately, who are you looking at? You're looking at Marino, you're looking at Declan Rice, who was amazing, but that's not his forte, is to bring it down on his chest and try and find a way to be able to swivel and hit it in the back of the net. But still, like, the second half, I think you actually saw a regression in his performance. He had one decent shot, again on the edge of the 18-yard, but beyond that, I think
Yeah.
he probably stifled a lot of our play. But yeah, go on. You tell me how you felt about it.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, we can have a longer conversation about maybe kind of like what his role has been and what he's doing recently. What I probably wanted to ask you is actually like, as the second half progressed, I think, as we know, it goes from 40 to 50 minutes, and then it goes from 50 to 60, and then it goes from 60 to 70. And did you at any point really feel like a goal was coming before it did?
No, not really. I think, again, in the nature of the game and how the game was going, you really needed an early second half goal, because that's the only way against a team that's playing a low block like that to give yourself enough of a runway to find the second and the third goal to give you the win that you need. And again, we didn't come out with enough intensity. We pretty much were doing the same thing. We were passing it sideways and trying to just find that small chink in the armour, which then, to your earlier point, I'm a little bit surprised that Arteta felt that the first half performance was really that good. I think it's sort of the statistics paper over, and let's say the perceived dominance paper over the fact that there wasn't much substance to our performance. So, to your point, I think you mentioned it yesterday, and I'd love to hear a little bit more of it. But what do we really get out of being in complete control, like dominance? Let's say there's all well and good being dominance for 2/3 of the pitch, but in the final third, if you can't make it count, then what do you really get out of it? So yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's false control sometimes, right? I think it's false control, because actually up until that point, Man United should have been about 3 goals up. They should have been about 3-0 up. Like, I mean, I think if you ask any unbiased person watching that game, they'd probably say United deserve to be winning this game by a few goals. People confuse dominance and control with possession. Just because you have the ball does not mean you're in control of the game. And someone who epitomized that quite well was like Mourinho back in his days when he was playing with Inter, for example, in that Champions League run, right? You think you're in control. You're not in control. They have you exactly where they want you to have you, because they're waiting for you to do that so then they can spring on you. And that's their tactic, right? They know Arsenal are going to have the ball. Arsenal have the ball against everyone. That's the thing, I think there was a statistic earlier in the season where I think Tottenham had the best possession stats in the whole league. They were sitting in 13th. There's a reason for that, Stagnant possession is something that doesn't do anything to anybody. It's about having point possession and doing something with possession that you have. If you have the ball and you have most of the possession and you have this team camped in the 18-yard box and their keeper's making 3 saves every 10 minutes, then yeah, that's fine. You are dominating, right? And they can't breathe and they're suffocating. Onana really didn't have to make any saves that were that crazy, really. I think there was a shot that Marino had that went wide in the first half, early in the first half, which maybe you should do better. But again, I'm not going to hold that against the guy. Like, he's not a striker. He's not a ball striker like that. So fine. And he pulled it wide. Okay, it happens. At least you shot, my friend, give you that. Ødegaard had a shot that went into Onana's hands again. You shot. It's fine. Listen, I'm never going to get upset with you putting shots on target in the goal. Yeah. I'll get upset if you keep doing it and they're shit shots. Yeah. Because then I'm like, well, they need to get a bit better. But when we're having limited shots, I'm never going to get upset with you doing that. So I think it's perceived control, isn't it? Because every single time that they went forward, they had a chance. They had a chance.
I think that's something that you've seen in numerous different versions of Arsenal teams. Even the Wenger teams used to suffer in the same way, right? Against the likes of your Boltons and your Stokes and whatever else. They'd be like, you know what? Have as much of the ball as you want. We do not mind. And we're going to hit you on the break, and you'll be out of shape. You won't be able to respond fast enough, or we'll get a free kick in a dodgy area that was going to cause you a commotion, and then you're going to concede. And I wonder if you've seen the way that Arteta is able to actually be quite tactically flexible against, for example, against City. He's known that he's always going to be that his top side in theory is inferior when it comes to playing the ball. But yet some of our best games have been playing with that slightly more reserved. You try and see if you can break us down for a bit, and we'll hit you on the break. But I also think fundamentally we're missing a lot of that personnel as well. That's some of that blinding pace that Martinelli and the likes of people are able to bring. But yes,
but I mean, we what I'll say is, we didn't think a goal was coming, but then it did. And obviously, it was a great run by Timber. Timber gets the ball. He does something that I don't think anyone did in the game for us very well, which is, he committed 2 or 3 players. They come across to try and deal with the problem, so he's carrying the ball quite nicely. That opens up a bit of space to Declan Rice on the edge of the box, and as soon as the ball got pulled back to him, because he was screaming for it, he was begging for it, like on the edge of the box, because you knew. I was like, goal. I knew it would be a goal because Declan Rice is a colossus, and he's someone who takes responsibility, and that's what he did. He said, you know what, you lot are not doing it, and I'm not letting us lose. And that's what he always does. Like, he is an absolute colossus, and he is such an important player to this team. And he said, yeah, sorry, I'm taking this on and I'm doing it. And I have a few words to say about a celebration. Like, I mean, I you know me, I'm a bit kind of angry man yells at cloud kind of guy. You know, I didn't really like the fact that he was like shushing the crowd and like celebrating and stuff like that. And yeah, you call me celebration, please, only because I want to win the game. You know, I know what I do in that situation. I'm not celebrating, man. I'm getting angry. I'm not celebrating. I'm like, you lot are shit, and we need to win this game. So do more of what I've just done. Get that fucking ball, and let's go back to the centre circle and let's win this game. But I'm not going to hold it against him. He probably was just happy he scored because it's a great goal, and he probably just everyone lets out frustration differently, and I think that was just him letting out frustration. I think he was just angry. He's angry at the fact that we can't create anything, and he's just like, you know what, fuck you lot. I'm sticking this in the side netting, and that's it. And he just let out his frustration a bit differently. He went to celebrate, and fine. I'm a bit different. I would have got that ball, and I'm going back to centre circle because I want to win that game. But yeah, I think the main point is that Declan Rice put us back into it.
Yeah, Martinelli is he was the one to go and tell him, hey mate, stop celebrating. Let's go back and try and get the second. Fantastic technique. I think the way he opened up his body and was able to curl it into the opposite side, basically, of Onana, and it was such a sweet strike. He couldn't hit it. You couldn't put it anywhere else, realistically speaking, in the way in which you'll want to beat him. And yeah, on par. Whilst I don't think his first half was particularly good, I think he kind of stepped up to the plate when necessary. And that's the difference between a title-winning side and a side that's always going to come second. You're looking for your leaders. When you look at that Liverpool team that we've been attempting to have a title race with, they have played poorly on numerous occasions, and yet they have players who will change it. Salah will pick himself up, and even though he's had a horrible game, and there's been so many games where he hasn't even been barely noticeable, yet he'll find a goal. Now, okay, I'm not trying to compare Trossard to Salah or whatever, because of course, again, the injuries you can't ignore. But needless to say, your Ødegaards, yes, Rice did it yesterday, and yeah, but even the likes of senior players like Trossard or something, again, he was completely non-existent yesterday. Frustratingly so at times. I felt like he wasn't even getting close into the game, and you're against De Ligt and Mazraoui. So a quick point on that. Sorry to cut you off. Quick point on that. So I don't want to talk too long about Trossard because like my frustrations with him will come out too much. And it is what it is. My biggest issue with him yesterday is, and I just want to, and I'm not saying he's Alexis Sanchez. Okay, I'm not saying this. So just disclaimer. But he's playing the exact same position as Sanchez did back in the day, right? One thing Sanchez used to do a lot when we used to have the ball on the right hand side is that he would come in front of that either the right back or centre back, and he would come in front of them when the ball's coming into the box, and he would make himself known and sit himself in there. One thing Trossard kept doing yesterday, which was frustrating me, is he kept just hiding behind the lit. So the ball would come over in the box, and he'd just be kind of just behind him with his arms up like that, not putting any challenges on him, not pressuring him, not trying to get in front of him. Whether or not that's because the ball keeps going to the back post or not, whatever. But one thing I just got really frustrated is that he never wanted to get in front of his man. And that was my biggest issue with him yesterday. Whenever we had the ball, he had just no interest in trying to get in the box and in front of his man. He always was just happy to sit behind him and kind of hide and just hope the ball would kind of just fall to him off a header and then do something. And that's probably all I really need to say about Trossard. But it's spot on, really. And I think that's emblematic of the entire performance. In theory, you've seen it on numerous occasions. Even Marino, I felt, wasn't really like. Although not a striker, I understand. But in theory, he should be able to understand how to use space in the box, because that's actually one of the primary reasons why we signed him. Okay, he's doing it from a left 8 position, hypothetically, but too many times did I see the centre halves in front of him and him not really moving, and exactly the same goes for Trossard. So I think where we ultimately struggled was, again, we're going back to that point of movement. There wasn't enough movement, and when we did commit players, as Timber managed, and we did create a bit of space, we were able to find a goal. And I think that gave us a bit of hope. Oh.
Sorry, I lost you there for a little bit. Actually,
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
lost you there
Am I
quite
back
a
now?
bit. Yeah.
Okay. I'm back
Yeah,
now.
you're fine now. Yeah, you are. Yeah, if you just say that, I think you said when we did commit plays, and then I lost you, and it's just
No,
froze.
yeah, exactly. When we did commit players, and you did see people trying to beat their man, then we were able to score a goal. And I think that leads us on to a little bit then, sort of after we scored the goal, did you like the energy and the performance that we had post that? Because you would expect that we would have a bit of momentum in order to go and find the winner.
Yeah, 1 second, because I think your audio is a bit out of sync now with your video. So just before we carry on, just say something now.
Is that any better?
No,
Is it completely
it's
off
now.
Hang
So
on.
what I'm gonna, yeah. So I think what we should do is, can you pause it or can I pause it?
I
Are
think
you able to pause it?
you can
No.
pause it.
Okay. So I'll pause it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, when we scored, and obviously when we, well, you might, to be fair, you might want to mute your mics. There's a bit of background on yours. Yeah. So when we scored, obviously, as every Arsenal fan does, I remember I was sitting at my mother and father-in-law's, and the yelp that I let out after Rice scored woke up everyone and the dog. So that was interesting. But passionately kind of celebrating. I thought, yeah, let's go, let's do it. There's that record that Man United hadn't had broken since 1984, where when they're leading at half time, they don't lose. And I was like, of this whole season, that would be such a nice thing to break. Of all the things, like, just give me a bit of joy. Let's just break that record. It'd be so nice. Like, and I thought we were going to. I thought, you know what? Now we finally. It's like one of the things where sometimes when you're really struggling to score, you just need to score once, and then you're like, yes, we can do this. Like, let's just go get another one. I'm not sure how soon after, but I think Arteta brought Tierney on, which I liked because I do like Tierney. I think he does offer something quite nice. And he brought Martinelli on, which was good. Because I was excited to see Martinelli. So I think Martinelli, he might have come on before that actually, because Nwaneri had come off. But it seemed that Marino then dropped into midfield. And I don't know. I think the issue is with that. I think that kind of just ruined the whole setup, because whilst I'm not going to sit here and criticize Mikel Marino about being a striker, one thing I will do for free, and that's what I've been doing from a very start of the point of the season, is I will criticize Mikel Marino as a midfielder, because I do not think that guy is good enough. I'm sorry, if you're watching this, my friend, I'm sorry, bro. You're just not good enough. I'm a midfielder, and if I was playing as bad as you, yeah, I would just sub myself off, man. Like, you're just, just can't keep the ball under pressure, take too long on the ball, don't really win duels as much as that was what you were bought for. You don't offer anything going forward. You're late to challenges, and I feel like you just kind of just clogged up an area where we didn't need clogging up at that point. You kind of it didn't really make any sense. You brought on Tierney, who's an elite crosser of the ball, and you take away your biggest aerial threat from the box by taking Marino off. I'm not saying he was great up front, and I'm not saying he was doing anything, but if you're going to have him on the pitch, you might as well just leave him in the box. So I feel like my issue was then I didn't really feel like we had much opportunity at that point until someone like Miles started to get the ball and start driving into those areas and committing players. And then I think we had a chance at the end of the game, didn't we? Which we could have scored, but it was a good save in the end, wasn't it, by Onana? But yeah, how did you feel about the us post scoring?
Yeah, you're right. I think you touched on something really important there. Sort of, you're trying to affect the game as a manager in that moment, and you're looking for some spark of creativity. Use the momentum that you have from the goal to really take the swords to United. And in the end, more than anything, it seemed like it confused the setup. And I would have liked, particularly when I thought he was bringing Tierney on, that maybe whilst, okay, he did have him pushed up higher and higher up the pitch, that you'd see Miles playing more centrally. In fact, I wouldn't even bother to necessarily deploying him at left back, because in a more traditional sense, because I think we were missing a little bit of that control in midfield. You know, you let Rice get forward, but you need someone who's able to then bring it from deep, because also what was inhibiting us is that then Ødegaard started also coming significantly deeper as the game wore on to try and get the ball to then take it forward. And that just, again, it slowed down play and it didn't really give us the momentum that we inherently needed. And that's a real shame, because, you know, when you have the opportunity to go and win a game at Old Trafford, you've really got to throw the kitchen sink. And I feel like sometimes Arteta's desire to just, you could argue from past experiences that we would still throw away games or lose. There's still too much of a level of conservatism to his play. And we don't really take and go forward at fast enough.
Yeah, he doesn't want to lose, right? And this is the issue. He doesn't want to lose. Like, and I get it. You don't want to lose, but at this point in the season, draws aren't doing much for you, man.
No,
like,
exactly.
If you want to chase that thing,
are we playing for top four now? Is that it? So we're happy to take a draw away at Old Trafford. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't.
So this is a good point. This is a good point. I want to touch on this actually. So because we can talk about, I think
that is the game. The game
analysis.
Yeah,
that's the game, isn't
it? There's not much more to say.
The game's done, really. I think Ødegaard had a chance there. I saw him getting a bit of stick online for missing that chance. I don't really see why he's getting stick for that. I think, listen, you've kept it down. I think we've been in that scenario. Someone rolls the ball to you at the edge of the box, yeah? And I'm telling you right now, I've had about 1,000 of those in my career, and I've probably skied about 650 of them.
Yeah, no, I don't think
so
there's much he could have really, like... Yeah, he was in the right place, right time. If he
kept it on target, and Arne got down nicely.
Yeah, exactly. Good save,
like, I mean,
really, more than anything.
Saka might have scored, Ethan might have scored. First of all, I don't think Saka's scoring there either. I think probably the only person who maybe puts that in the back of the net is probably Ethan or Calafiori in that position on the left foot. I don't think anyone else is really banging that in. I mean, I'm not going to over-index that. Good pass from Trossard, good decision, decent shot, kept it on target, and Arne got down. It is what it is, isn't it? Like, that is it. But yeah, I think at the end, that's kind of the game done, isn't it? One thing I wanted to then now just talk about is, now, good point you made. I feel like, and tell me if you agree, in the media, obviously Arteta has to put the front on, oh yeah, we're still going for the title, we're still going to win games and all that. But I think in his mind, and he probably has felt this for a while now, we need to secure top four now, we need to secure Champions League. And I think for that reason, he's trying to make sure that we get every point that we can, because it's going to matter at the end of the season, in my opinion, because that cluster of, I think, 6 or 7 teams who are fighting for that top 5 spot is getting thinner and thinner. So it's getting more compact, isn't it?
Well, you would argue then, go and win some games rather than just holding on for dear life against, again, the worst Man United side I've ever seen. And yet, the reality is also, we've seen him do that earlier on in the season, where in theory we were very much in the title mix, and he's been too conservative and we've been drawing too many games. And so, yeah, that's probably where we're at right now. I think the points difference, where are we now in the league? What is it shaping up to be?
I think we are 14 points maybe off Liverpool, or 15 points off Liverpool for the game in hand.
Yeah,
Is it 2 games in hand?
I'm definitely not looking.
No, hello.
Sorry. I was unmuting. Yeah, we're definitely not thinking about what's above us, but I think we're looking immediately below us. So there's 10 games left. And Forest are 4 points off of us. Chelsea, pretty unreliable, but yeah, they're still 6 points off. So really, I still think we should be more than fine, and we should comfortably finish in second. But even then, Forest got a good result against City as well, so you can't discount them from also leapfrogging us.
So one thing I want to ask, actually, and one question I want to pose to you is, how important now is next week's game against Chelsea? About kind of separate. Yeah, like, I mean, I think we're going to need to really try and create that gap between them, right? Because I think if we look at that, if we beat Chelsea at home next week, we go to 58 points, and then the gap between us and Chelsea is then 9 points. If they beat us, which is a possibility, that gap closes to 3 points, and then we're really, really in a spot of bother, right? So how important is next week?
Yeah, it's a must win, surely. And, I think we've stopped looking at the title race. I think Arteta getting as irate as he did when asked that question is a bit of theatre, if I'm honest, because I don't think he wants to give the impression that we're not a serious team. But the reality is exactly as you post it. They'll only be 3 points off. Forest will, at the rate that they're going, are likely to probably go and get another win. And you never know what City. Brighton are only a point off. Villa are getting on a bit of a decent run. They're only, in theory, 10 points off, but they could win a few more games, and all of a sudden they'll be back in the mix. It's tight. You've got to go at home and really have a good performance against Chelsea. And I think you can't guarantee it because the mistakes are on us, and the lack of a cutting edge going forward is something that's really, really worrying. And the worst thing is going to the Emirates, and we're on a bit of a bad run, and we don't get that goal early, and we've let it get to 35 minutes, and the crowd starts getting on top of the players, and all of a sudden you've got a significantly more nervy match than it needs to be, because again, we are much more superior than Chelsea. And yet, like as we kind of foresaw it could have been the case with United, it might well happen again against Chelsea. So yeah, do you think, maybe we shouldn't skip ahead too far to Chelsea, because obviously we also got the midweek game against PSV, but thinking about it in like a cluster, let's say, how do you approach the PSV game now, knowing that, okay, we've got a sizable lead, unlikely that, Obsessed will make many changes, but it'd be good to get your point of view. And then afterwards, how do you manage that appropriately to make sure you go and take as enough points as possible against Chelsea at home?
Yeah, I think the team should probably follow suit to what the fans are doing, and I think probably just stay at home. To be honest, like looking at how many tickets are available. I think probably.
Aren't you glad that I'm taking your ticket? Hey.
Oh man, you know what? I was gonna say to you, actually, funny enough, right? I was gonna say you said you transferred me the money already. Yeah, a bit of context. He's already paid me for the ticket, and I think we all know what the category A prices are for that game. I was gonna say to you, I don't know why you paid me for that ticket. I was gonna say just give me like half the money or whatever. But what I will say is that if we do get through, fingers crossed, and obviously we play one of the Madrid teams at home, you can have that. You can have the Madrid one.
No man,
it's not
about being pedantic about tickets. You get a ticket. Like I know there's so many people out there who are desperate to go and watch an Arsenal game. Yeah. And I literally live 20 minutes walking distance from the ground.
It's just a day out, isn't it?
It's an evening out. So, but yeah. Anyways, how would you set up for the PSV game, right? So I think we're in this. We're in this weird sort of high-low phase where we go 1 week and we're decent, and 1 week we're god-awful. Champions League almost feels a bit of a oasis that we can form differently, and maybe the energy's a bit different, whatever. But yeah, how would you go about setting up and then thinking about the Chelsea game?
I think there's a few players that I would rest. Obviously, the key players. I think Ødegaard needs a rest. I think he needs a rest. I think if you'd have asked me how I felt about Ødegaard yesterday, I would have given you a very emotional response to how I felt after the game. After sleeping on it for 24 hours, I think, I'm going to reserve judgment, and say he needs a rest. I think if we can, I think we should rest Declan Rice as well, because I think we're going to need him next week, and we're going to need him to really be kind of available and firing. I'd be starting Jorginho. I think he should be coming into the game for this game. I'd probably try and rest Ethan as well. I don't think putting that much load on and minutes on him at the moment is a good thing to be doing. So I'd rest Ethan. I'd probably give Raheem a start. Oh, actually, we can't give Raheem a start because he's his loan club, isn't it? So that poses a bit of a problem.
Chelsea. Remember, that's Chelsea. So you give him the start against PSV.
Sorry,
yeah, exactly.
No, sorry, PSV. Yeah, absolutely start Raheem starting against PSV. Yeah, because he looked absolutely pissed on Sunday for not coming on. But yeah, I think guys like Tierney should be getting a start. Kiwior, if he's fit, should be starting. So I think really in reality,
good to get Ben White some minutes as well.
Ben White's back. It's good. So I mean, unfortunately, I don't know who else we have. I think maybe you could try and play one of the youth guys up front. But unfortunately, as we know, Arteta is not Arsene Wenger, and he probably won't make that many changes. So I expect to see guys like Gabriel and Saliba starting, unfortunately. But again, like I said last week, any team can score 6-7 goals on any given day, and you cannot disrespect anyone who's playing in the Champions League, because if you are not on it, that game will get very, very, very bad very, very, very quickly.
And again,
So
they've got some
they need to
dangerous
respect-
players, right?
Yeah.
They've got the likes, you know, again, well, I'm only going to name one now because I don't remember anybody else, but Noah Lang.
Yeah, Perisic is there.
Perisic is always liable to do something a bit funky. You never know what he's going to do in the box. And
Bakayoko is a very good player as well. You know,
exactly. They can get him fit and firing.
But what about you?
I think, you know, I don't know if Nathan, you know, Butler-Adéjayé is going to get a game. I think Arsenal are pretty open to maybe getting rid of him as well earlier on in sort of in the January transfer window or whatever. But of course, injuries meant that was going to be possible. So is he in the high priority lane as a youth player to get a start? Probably not. So then, yeah, it's going to be a funny amalgamation really of still probably starting Merino or something like this. And then hopefully getting to about 50, 60 minutes and the game is still pretty comfortable that you can then maybe think about getting rid of giving those players a rest, giving them half an hour or so. And I think that's more likely of what Arteta's going to do. So yeah, it's about managing the game. Fundamentally against PSV, it's not doing anything too crazy. You know, maybe a game like they have played against United, just control the ball. Don't try and give them any chances. Make them chase you to try and grab a hold of it. And then if you manage to get a goal when they're desperate, perfect. You just give yourself more breathing space. The one thing though is Peter Bosz is a manager who loves to go on the attack. I think his Dortmund side, for example, used to be, you know, seriously entertaining to watch. Concede as many goals as they would score, kind of thing. So you can't take it too lightly. However, yeah, you are thinking about Chelsea after that. So, yeah, I think it's more or less the same team. Won't it be for Chelsea? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether or not we want to think about that game a little bit later in the week. Let's see how we get through the PSV game, and
I think we're going to probably do a pod maybe Thursday or sometime, and we can discuss that in more detail. So I think probably that's a good time to wrap up the kind of the game and the football kind of playing side of things. So just moving into a different side of things, actually, I think we've had the confirmation that Andrea Berta, I think I pronounced that correctly, is going to be the new sporting director for Arsenal Football Club. I think David Ornstein mentioned that he's probably going to be starting the role in the next couple of weeks, and he'll be kind of heavily working on the recruitment side, very, very much so, for kind of in preparation for the summer window. There were a few names kind of mentioned about names that have been kind of filtered around for Arsenal for a few months now. What are your thoughts on that appointment, and how do you feel like that's going to affect the summer transfer window, and what does it mean? Yeah,
I mean, the first bit of news I looked at on Sunday morning, which really piqued my mood ahead of the United game, was that I think we've made a top signing when it comes from a sporting director perspective. He's clearly someone who has serious European pedigree. I think Atletico Madrid are not in a too dissimilar sort of format to or let's say, I wouldn't say stature, but you know what I mean in terms of where they are in comparison to some of the big teams that they have in their league, which is Barcelona and Real Madrid, consistently punching above their weight, being very savvy in the transfer market, and being able to, you know, be in the mix for titles is what he and Diego Simeone were able to achieve, right? So I think he's showing that he also has longevity. He's willing to stay at a club and build a project. I think that was, you know, Edu leaving, although I think Edu did some good things. There was also some certain things that I don't think he did great. You know, we hope that Andrea Berta is someone who's going to be able to now actually really build a solid foundation. And there's some big decisions on his plate, huge decisions that he's going to have to think through. There's new contracts, first and foremost, for the likes of Saka, Ødegaard, for instance. Saliba's coming up again.
Saliba, I was going to mention,
Saliba's a huge contract you've got to do something about. And then, you would expect most Arsenal targets for this summer should have already been identified and already in the works. So my main man, not Mendy, Zubamendi, same joke twice. Let's keep it going. That should already be wrapped up. Then it's a question of, okay, what striker are we going to go and try and sign? Sesko seems the one that everybody keeps on continuously speaking about. But it's not a case that's a given that we're going to go away and sign him. You still got to put the work in order to be able to get that deal across. And then I would like to see, what his point of view or what they identify as another attacking player, a winger or something, to be able to share the burden or maybe challenge the likes of Trossard and Martinelli on the left-hand side and give us a little bit more edge. So yeah, I think great appointment. It really shows ambition. Hopefully someone who will check Arteta a little bit as well. I think he needs someone who is going to be a strong personality. These sort of, if Arteta wants another Merino, I want Andrea Berta to tell him, no, you can't have him. That's not part of the plan. That's not the player you need. But we need something else. So again, I think you need that. I wanted to raise a point with you though. You made it very clear. Do you want to talk a little bit about in terms of how, let's say, Edu dealt with other clubs and sort of the approach in terms of like going after players? I think you made something an interesting point about that. Yeah, it'd be good to, and what you think Andrea Berta could do different.
Yeah, I think one thing we've kind of we've seen jokes about online and we've seen a lot of reports about is that Arsenal kind of don't want to do things because they want to keep good relationships with other clubs, so they don't want to like force the issue with, for example, like Benjamin Sesko in the January, because they want to make sure they maintain a good relationship with Leipzig. I think there was another scenario somewhere else. There's been a few teams where we basically not pushed on things because we wanted to maintain good relationships. And I don't know, like, again, I don't work in the football world, right? I don't really know how that stuff works. So maybe I'm a bit naive in saying this, but in my opinion, I think that stuff just doesn't mean anything. I think, listen, you go and you do what you have to do. Chelsea are obviously not Brighton's favourite people, but they will still keep signing players from them. Yeah, you might have to overpay a little bit, but I'm sorry, I don't think they're going to give you a discount because you were nice. Yeah, that's not how football and business works. I think eventually they're going to want something from you, and that's when you're going to be able to kind of leverage what you've done. So the issue for me is I think Arsenal need to be, in my opinion, a bit more aggressive with their targets when they want them and they need them. And Paul Merson made a point about the kind of Ollie Watkins bid in January, about how I'm not sure. I might be wrong. I think he said something that Arsenal bid 60 million. I don't know if that was the case. I think we bid 40 million.
We bid 40 and they were holding out for 60. And that was at a similar time they were playing with, is John Duran going to go to Saudi, not going to go to Saudi? In the end, they ended up getting a way higher figure from Saudi for Duran, so they were never going to sell Ollie Watkins in any case.
I mean, I think, again, the point I'm trying to make kind of really is I just think that we need to be a bit more aggressive with getting what we want, because at the end of the day, I think we need to understand that we need to stop being worried about other people and other clubs and how we're perceived to other clubs, because in reality, it's about winning and it's about getting the people you need in and when you need them. And I think people don't understand that individuals that are like Declan Rice or like Saliba or Saka or Gabriel, guys who have a lot of suitors from other clubs, and this happened with Van Persie back in the day, they get annoyed when you don't do things you need to do because they know that they can't do it themselves. And they know that they need help and they need the right players around them. And yeah, I'm not asking you to start taking advice about who to sign from your players, because that is a recipe for disaster. But what I'm trying to say is that you need to start surrounding your players with people who are going to uplift them, not with players that they have to keep constantly uplifting. If that makes sense, right? And I think, and again, we can probably have another pod where we really discuss actually what's been going on with Ødegaard this season and his poor performances. But I think what happens is sometimes when you put too much burden on players like that, it costs them, and then you start to see the worst of them.
You just look like, he looks like someone who has the weight of the world on his shoulders, and I feel sorry for him. So yes, do you want? I think definitely a sporting director who is able to really look holistically at the team and say, right, this player's got a good couple. He's coming to his peak. So how are we going to support him to achieve his objectives at Arsenal? Because if we don't get this transfer window right, I think a lot of the good credit that, the sort of upward trajectory that Arsenal have been on, that it's a club that people want to go to. Declan Rice, case in point, right? Because he could see, he made the right call in theory. Okay, he could have gone to City and might have won treble, but in essence, I think he could see that maybe over the next, okay, maybe not in the immediate term, but maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be at a club, hopefully, that's challenging and if not winning most of the major trophies that are out there. And we've taken a step back this season, maybe 2 steps back even. So I think it's important, to exactly your point, how are we going to make sure that these players feel like they are being supported with quality acquisitions that are going to take them to the next level in order to be able to win those trophies.
Yeah. And I think things change quickly, right? Things change very quickly. So as quickly as we became good. So I think didn't get top 4 one season, the next season we're challenging for the title. That's how quickly you can end up not being good again. And also that's the same that goes for other teams, right? Other teams can just the project can just go bang, you never know. So this whole like, oh, it's on the season, next season, and we're going to play as big. It's not the way things work. It's not the way sports works. I know people really want to believe that it's the way sports works, and because that's how other life works. Like if you keep working hard and you're Thomas Tank Engine and you just keep doing it, it's going to happen. It's not the way it works, right? Like you have to understand that winning begets winning, and losing begets losing. And if you keep coming up short, there's no guarantee that just because you're almost there, that you're going to do it one day.
And I think that's what those some of those late 2000s Wenger teams really suffered with. We ended up having our best players taken from us at crucial moments because they didn't think that they were ever going to be supported enough to.
Football's a short career, right?
Absolutely. You want to make the most out of what you have at the peak of your powers. So I think it's really, really important that Arsenal set down a marker with the disappointment. I would have been so devastated if they decided to stay with an internal candidate like Jason Naito. And I don't blame him for maybe not getting all of the January transfer window as we wanted to, whatever. Right? And it's super hard, and he's an interim person in this role and whatever. Like I think it's unfair to label that on him necessarily. But again, if you want to be in the top tier, challenging the likes of Real Madrid and clubs like that for the Champions League, and you want to be challenging the likes of Liverpool and City, or I don't know, City next season most likely again for the Premier League, you're going to have to be ruthless. And I think you made a really, really good point there. I think the 40 million plus one thing comes to mind a little bit of Arsenal just being a bit too toothless and not ruthless. Toothless and not ruthless. Maybe that's a good name for today's episode.
It could be. That could be. That's pretty good, actually. Right? Yeah, I might go with that easily. Yeah.
Jeez. But I think anyway. Let's see. It's also one thing to say. He was available. It made a lot of sense. He was already in London trying to learn English. I think he was positioning himself for the role. He'd been in talks for a while. Apparently, and apparently it's someone also Arteta really wanted equally.
That's it. Yeah, that's important. So, I think that's an important point you made. I think that what I've read about the reports is that the Arteta was quite pivotal in bringing him, and he definitely wanted him there. And I think that says a lot. I think it says that this is not something that someone is going to come and maybe oppose him as much, but someone who's probably going to help him and help him get on there. But this is the thing, I think, and I think there was a podcast, I think it was Tim Stillman mentioned it actually. He was saying, in business that some of the most successful businesses are having, 2 people who can kind of oppose each other at the right time, but work well together, not people who just kind of sit there and argue constantly and nothing gets done. And I think that's the important thing. I think maybe, again, Arsenal fans are a special breed of fan where we kind of think that we need to really dive deep into like, who is point director? Like, what's he done in the past? Like, let's go hyper analyze all these things. At the end of the day, you are going to come into a different job with a different role and do different things. And the only way we're going to judge you is after it's done. So when we look back and maybe in 5 years' time, when we look at the signings he's made and the sales he's made and what we've won, then we'll be able to sit there and judge whether or not he's a good sporting director or not. You can't do that before he's done anything. And I think, like you said, I think this transfer window in the summer is a really, really, really important one, isn't it? And I think if we don't get it right, and again, I wanted to put this down in the disclaimer, it's very hard to get it right. Yeah, we can do everything that people want to do. We can go and sign Zubimendi, or I really like Adam Morton from Crystal Palace. I think he's a great player. We can go and sign him. We can go and sign. Let's go and say you go and sign Isak. Let's say you go and do it, which I don't think is going to happen. But let's say you go and sign Isak. You sign Nico Williams. You sign this. You sign that player. You can do everything, and you still might not get it right. There's that kind of famous summer But Man United came second, I think, in the Premier League, and then they signed Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho, and Varane, and they thought, oh, that's it, we're going to be right there, and they were awful.
Well, they basically broke they destroyed their wage structure. They fundamentally the wrong players that they needed to sign. Right, on paper, everybody was, oh, United won the transfer window, and I mean, I think from that point onwards, I think you've seen a sharp decline in the shape of their squad. It's been lopsided. They haven't been able to get rid of players as a result of it. So, yeah, I think that's all you can do. You just, it's a result-based business. It's the only way that you're able to judge their performances is in a few years' time from now. And but yeah, crucial summer transfer window. God, it's been a long day.
Yeah,
transfer window, and the good thing is you've got a guy who's available to join in the next couple of weeks. It's not like we're going to have to wait for, the Real Sociedad director or whatever to finish their season first and then come and all that kind of stuff. The only other person who could have been an interesting appointment, but I think a bit tainted, was the geezer from United, Dan Ashworth.
Yeah.
I think he did an amazing job at Brighton. I think then Newcastle, he signed Isaac, and
he's really
well,
tapped into the England setup, isn't he, as well?
Yes.
Like, I think he's from a young age group, he understands kind of where all the best emerging England talent's coming from, and I think that's something that could have been maybe a bit helpful. But yeah, I think probably that's a good time and a good point to maybe wrap it up. Really,
onwards and upwards to PSV.
Discussion.
Yeah.
I think you know what? I think we've done really well. I think we've had a nice, balanced, calm discussion about the game. I think if you'd recorded this yesterday, it would have been a lot different.
Again, I probably had time, but I was like, I am 90% certain I probably won't be in my best mood, and they proved me right, which is really annoying because I didn't want to be proved right yesterday, but I was. So no, a much more balanced discussion. I think we've covered a lot of ground there. So let's see. Let's see.
But yeah, let's chat after PSV and see, and hopefully we come out of that game unscathed and into the next round, and we can start maybe thinking about who we're going to be playing in the round after. And then we'll have a discussion maybe about Chelsea. And I think what would be good actually is to, as we get further on in the season, fingers crossed, hopefully the league's going okay and we stay in the top 4, etc. We can maybe do like a scouting pod and maybe go through some targets that maybe we think would be good, and then we can do that.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch the YouTube comps, man.
Man. I've lived off those for the last 22 years, man. I lived off those.
That's it. Or I don't know, just start playing a bit of FIFA again and just get a feeling for exactly. I think he's a great winger. He's got 88 pace. We should sign him. But yeah, man. Well, that's Canon Event pod. Episode number 2 on the wraps. It's been a pleasure talking to you, my brother, and chat again after the PSV game.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
See you then.
Nice one. Thanks.
Take care, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.